main character of my story stinks. I need to completely gut her character and try to make her more interesting to drive the plot of the story forward. But how do I do that? I already have this huge 100,000 word plus document dictating the story of that character. Isn't it too late to change her? No. And surprisingly, it's not going to be that hard to fix either. Sure, it may take a bit of rewriting, but that's part of the process of writing. Hello everyone, my name is Jessica, and today I'm going to go over my thoughts on how to make a more thought out and interesting character when it comes to writing stories. Again, these are my thoughts and process of what I did to make my character in the book that I'm writing a better character. These aren't the laws to character creation, but I hope that maybe some of the basic process I discuss will help give you inspiration for your own characters. Take my advice only as it helps you and your writing process. If you do happen to like the video, please press the like button and check out some of my other writing vlogs and art videos on my channel. For now, let's discuss the first thing I think about when I design characters. Honestly, the appearance of a character should be your least concern when you're writing a character. I've read great stories where the main character is never described, such as The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman and Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. Their main characters are never even named so much as shown to have a physical appearance, and yet those who read the story know the main characters of the woman who slowly descended into madness through isolation, and the young man who murdered a kind old soul because he hated the old man's eye. We feel for these characters, either horrified for their mistreatment or having a morbid curiosity that makes us want to follow where their story goes. And yet, we have no idea what they may look like, and have to fill in the blanks ourselves. Despite the appearance being the least important, it is often where I start out in my character creation. What can I say? I'm a very visual person who can draw. I feel like it would be a crime for me not to use my artistic talents to better understand my characters. And though it may be the least important thing when creating a story character, having an appearance down can inform you more about their character as a whole. Why did they choose the clothes they wear? What are their inspirations for carrying themselves the way that they do? A character who wears a hoodie every day might give off the vibes of someone who is chill, tired, wants to blend into the background, or prioritizes comfort over beauty. A character who wears ball gowns and suits probably cares what the public eye thinks of them, maybe are more serious, outgoing with people in power, socialize more. A character's clothing could also undermine their personality, such as the hoodie character being the outgoing, partying one, while the one in the suit is forced to socialize against their will, a la Mr. Darcy. Clothes only make up a fraction of the story, though, as they change. What about what they were born with? Did they keep their natural color of their hair, or are they rebelling against their genes by dyeing it to their favorite color? Do they have a scar or birthmark? How did they get the mark? Is it visible? Are they mocked for it, or praised, or even given acceptance because of the mark? Are they naturally short and need help reaching the top shelf? Are they so thin that even a light breeze could knock them over? Are they tall enough that they need to bend down to get through doorways? Or are they fatter than most, and is that considered bad in the public eye, good in the public eye, or so normal it really doesn't matter? Here's the thing about appearance. Most of the time, no matter how much you explain what your character looks like in the story, your reader is going to substitute whatever they're imagining onto that character. So, if you're going to describe a character's appearance, you should make that appearance important to the story. Take my character Blair, for example. I want her to be a punk alternative rocker who has a band and everything. Why? Because her skills with music are important to the story. I also want her to feel like a fish out of water as she goes exploring this fairy world that I've created, so she wears very muted and dark colors, does dark makeup, and her hair is dyed black. Not only does this create contrast between Blair and the brightly colored fairies, but it brings more of her serious, no-nonsense personality in direct opposition with the silly fairies. I also use her appearance as a way to show Blair's change and growth throughout the story. She adopts more colors as she begins to wear the clothes of the fairies, as a subtle way to show her progression. How your character changes in the story can directly affect their appearance and how they want to present themselves to the world. That is always a fun thing to play with when creating characters for a story. I tend to have a good grasp on what I want my characters to look like before I even begin writing them, but that's still some of the least important points to focus on when creating a character for a story. It can get easy to get sucked into appearance of a character because that's the fluffy fun part. The next two parts is where the real struggle and work is put in to make the character feel more fleshed out. And it's these two parts that I didn't think to make when starting to write Blair's story. I did not have a backstory when it came to Blair. I knew vaguely what she looked like, vaguely what her personality was, and I figured that would be enough to get the ball rolling. So I started writing. And then I got stuck, and stuck, and stuck again, while trying to figure out how Blair would react to certain things. At first, I had her not know anything about fairies, but then I decided that was stupid because she lives in a world like ours today. Fairies are part of popular media, and while she may not be familiar with all of my rules for fairies, she definitely would have heard and internalized some of the fairy tales she heard while growing up. I also had to make up things on the fly. Who were her friends? Why does she not like the fairy world? There's a B-plot that involves romance, but I made Blair very adverse to forming a quick relationship. Why though? Why would her actions in the story make any sense? Why does she think the way she thinks? I still have a lot of work to do with Blair's history. I completely wrote out her dad, and I need to figure out where he went and how that affected Blair, which I feel like I should have figured that out sooner rather than later. What I'm saying here is, don't be like me. Figure out a basic history for your character before you start writing the main story. That being said, go ahead and start writing the character. I find the easiest way to find out about a character's history and personality is just to begin writing what you think the character would do. Create short stories of your character going to the supermarket. Maybe create a scene of how your character would react to seeing a cat stuck in a tree. If there's a part of your character's backstory that really means a lot to the character, consider writing that scene and see how they reacted in the moment. How did they react when they heard their grandma died? When they were thrown into prison for the first time, were they greeted with guilt and shame? Or did they meet a few people that would actually become part of their gang? Basically, get to know your character by writing the scenarios that made them them. Now, I'm not saying to write an entire bibliography about the growing up experiences of your character. What I'm saying is to find those life-changing moments and figure out why those matter to them and how they would react to them. Heck, you don't even have to write if you don't want to. You can just play the important scenes in your head if that works for you. Either way, you should get to know your character inside, outside, past, present, and future. It will really help you when writing your main story. One more caveat before we move on to the last point. You don't have to do this with every single character in your book. Different characters deserve different lengths of time when working on them. You don't need to know about the time that Louis, the Walmart cashier, stubbed his toe so hard that they had to amputate it, if the story is not about the Walmart cashier. That character only needs to be there for a split second before they are gone from the page. Most characters, like the one I described, will do with very little character development. Have Lewis be a grouchy old man who works at Walmart and be done with it. More important characters, like your main characters, protagonists, villains, and reoccurring characters, are the ones who should have the histories and personalities to back up their decisions in a story. Those are the ones you should focus on. The personality of a character is basically how they make decisions going forward. Every action is based off of how they think, and it's really hard to talk about personality when it's so tied to history and what makes the character into the person they are today. So, I would challenge that when thinking about personality, you've got to think about the character's perspective. How does your character view the world? There are a lot of things that could affect their perspective, such as, again, their history, but also the setting which they're in, the people they choose to hang around, and their own disabilities and mental struggles. Blair, for example, has a more pessimistic outlook on life. Sure, she has wild dreams to be part of a band with her faraway friends, play her bass, and be a professional musician in life. But her more serious tendencies make her cautious, plan things out, and get frustrated when her plans don't go according to her desires. Because of that, she acts very stubbornly. This negative perspective shifts whenever she gets the opportunity to play because music makes her feel good, and she's able to get out her destructive negative thoughts in a more constructive way than bottling them up, like she feels she has to do in order to be the responsible one. After performing, she shifts her perspective a little bit and becomes a little bit more of a dreamer. Still a little sarcastic, but at least she's playing off her worries as jokes until her worries make her spiral back into her morbid realism. And again, this is all stuff I figured out about Blair as I wrote my story. It would have been easier to write her character had I known about these things before writing them. But at least now I know and can implement them into the second draft of my story. So, challenge yourself. Figure out a way for your character to see the world and try writing from that perspective. Your character's personality will show forth as you write them and use them in several situations. Over time, you'll become an expert on your character that will help you write the first draft of your story more easily. And that's everything. Now you have a vague process on how to create your own well-thought-out characters. I want to update you a little on my work in progress novel before closing it out, so hang on 1 second. As of writing this script, I have finished chapter 18 of the first draft. Yay! Things are getting intense again in the story, and the end of the story is on the horizon. Still a lot more to figure out, but as soon as the first draft is done, I'll be able to do some serious cleanup edits, such as making Blair a better and more consistent character. She's changed quite a bit since first writing the story. I hope you found the outline for creating characters helpful, and may you make tons more thought-out characters in the future. Remember the 3 things to think about while making your character: appearance, history, and their personality. Subscribe for more character creation videos like this one and more. I try to make a writing and storytelling focused video each month, but I also have craft videos where I share some of my short stories with art to go along with them, as well as just fun art and story related videos. I'll see you around, and for goodness sake,